Silver and Camille, and we're back, and we just want to do a quick video on the blaccent. I actually had somebody ask me what it was, and what's the difference, and I kind of couldn't just do it on the phone. It was weird. So, we just wanted to kind of explain it a little bit. And blaccent itself is kind of a joke, calling it blaccent. It's
not really a thing.
It's not a thing, but it's just a
so
term.
what it is essentially is it's an unconscious switch in the way that we speak.
Based on our audience.
Right.
Yeah.
And, in a level of comfortability. So if you noticed in our first few videos that I had my Catholic school girl voice, and that Silver calls her customer service voice. But which I kind of revert to that when I'm nervous. Oh my gosh, so da-da-da-da. Versus when I'm a little bit more comfortable, then I speak more like this. Or if I'm angry and upset, then Cardi B comes out, and it's a whole nother thing that hopefully you guys never have to see.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because I remember being in school and being like, you sound like a Valley girl, instead of you don't sound black, you sound like a Valley girl. But that was just, I don't know, some of where you grew up, the TV shows that you watch, your friends.
90210 was like my favorite show when I was
this is the early 90s, that we're talking about. So.
Telling our age, but
yeah,
mine anyway.
It's just, so we've kind of taken to having notes and a timer because, as you've noticed, we don't know how to be quiet.
Yeah, and our ADHD conversations go from one thing to the next and can go on forever.
Right, so we're writing it in a little bit today with this quick video.
So like I said, it kind of depends on our comfort level. Like the same way that you switch the way that you speak between your boss and your spouse, or your coworkers versus your friends that you've known for a long time. Silver and I are pretty comfortable with each other. So when we talk, it's one thing, but if I am with Silver and I'm meeting some
our clients,
right, then it switches up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Even like jokes or the way that I may laugh at some things may change depending on how comfortable I am in the room. And I think that we teach our children kind of code switching as a survival method, not consciously either.
It just kind of happens.
Right.
And we're going to be posting kind of a funny video that shows you that code switch. It's not even just verbal. That's the thing. It's not like it's a whole change. And so we're going to have that in the comment section. So make sure you watch it.
Yeah, Key and Peele.
Yeah.
They're hilarious and pretty good at pointing that kind of stuff out.
Right. And it's obviously dramatized in there, but it just really illustrates that
that it's
accommodation. We're so used to accommodating.
That's what it is.
To make people comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be too black, which is where we got the name for our little show here. Is you get so used to accommodating. Lacrae kind of touched on
people
it.
Comfortable.
People
especially
are
if you're the
uncomfortable.
minority in the room, you tend to do things to try to make your audience more comfortable.
Mm-hmm. And it's just unconscious, like you said. You don't even really notice doing it. You just kind of switch it up.
Right.
Or we speak to clients sometimes for the first time on the phone, and then they're kind of surprised when we show up,
Oh, you're the doula? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it's it's me.
Because we had our customer service voice on for the phone.
Yeah. And then you mentioned something about the Philly fans.
Oh, yeah. So here's a thing. I think it's easy to be oh, so what? You guys just assume that all black people speak the same and they're going to be comfortable with you just because you're black. And it's not so much that. It's just a natural comfort measure. Comfort, sorry, I'm so used to talking birth, I threw out comfort measure. But your natural comfort. And so it's almost for the Philly folks out there, it's being in Wisconsin and you see a guy with an Eagles jersey and you're going to go to them and be go Birds!
Right.
Because it's just, you see that connection. That's something that made you comfortable. And I think being in a scenario where you're not the minority makes you feel comfortable. And then if you are the minority, seeing another minority, you just kind of have this unspoken body language. You'll kind of notice, when I go places, if I see anybody who's not white, there's kind of just and we're in a circle, I kind of am you just make eye contact and you feel that body language and that unspoken understanding.
Right. It gives you a sense of peace, camaraderie, oh, good, I'm not the only one that's, and that goes beyond race. That could be if you're at a baby shower and there's only two men there, you're naturally going to gravitate toward that other man in the room.
Right. If you're the man, you're going to be oh, there's another man at this baby shower.
Yeah, oh, hey, so you get what I'm, you understand how I'm feeling. And that's what it comes more from. You don't
it's just having somebody else with a similarity to you.
Yeah.
You know, so it's whether you don't want to be the only girl or the only boy. You don't want to be the only not white. You know, you want to be another Philly fan. Like, it's just that camaraderie. And so that kind of changes that blaccent. So, like, one of the things is, like, we're talking about, there's, like, parenting things or, like, common phrases. So I grew up with white parents, but I mean, I was around my Black family. I was around other people. And it's funny because there are things that I say that my parents didn't necessarily say. But it's just, like, I picked up on. And it's kind of like one of the things is, like, you got McDonald's money? Like, when a kid asks to go somewhere, like, are you paying for it? Yeah. Which might be similar to another parent saying, like, oh, not today, sweetie. We're going to go eat lunch at home. We're just like, you got money?
Right. Or, like, kids talking back, like, you know.
I talk back a lot.
And I didn't because I already knew what it was. And,
right.
You know, so it's like we'll be on the playground and there'll be another kid like, no, I'm not leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And then my kid will be like, I'm not leaving. I'm like, who are you talking to? And then I'll be like, oh, never mind.
Right.
Okay,
like,
I'll get my stuff.
It's just like a different tone.
Right.
And it's not like one tone's better than the other. It's just this idea of like,
I don't know. Where you're comfortable. Like I said, the whole work scenario.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure when you go to work, no matter how you talk,
there's a switch up a little bit.
Right. Like you're definitely more professional when you're around your coworkers and your boss versus when you're at home with your friends or out at the bar with your friends or, I mean, we don't go to the bar. But,
just an example.
You know, like
people
out,
who do.
Hanging out with your friends versus being at work.
So so I guess it's kind of hard to just like throw out the blaccent and like we don't do it on command because it's just
or on
like,
purpose.
It's just like a natural change. And then just a quick wrap up to that. If you don't naturally have any of these like language patterns or things and then you throw it out only when you're around Black people or Hispanic people, that's another thing. It wouldn't be the blaccent, but it might be kind of trying to sound like you have a similar accent. You know, we notice and it sounds weird.
So in other words, like don't put on a character role to try to.
And it's not a skin color thing, by the way. Like if you were somebody who grew up in an urban community and your friends were Black and like that's just how you talk, awesome. Like that's just how you like Eminem.
Yeah, kind of Eminem, not Vanilla Ice. Like
yes, yeah, just kind of that idea. Like that's just where you grew up. So it's not even. And again, I'm gonna have a different blaccent. Like I hardly have one because I grew up in Pennsylvania Dutch country. Like,
and I grew up in Erie, where people definitely don't speak like they do here in Philly.
Right, it's just like a different tone. So since we've both been in Philly for a while, we do pick up like small things. Mm-hmm. And that's not even like a race thing. That's just like a Philly accent.
And it's who you're around. Like, you know, your language skills are developed as a child. And so if you as a child are around, you know, a group that speaks one way, and then as a teenager, you're around a group that speaks another way, which is kind of what happened for me. Mm-hmm. In my early formative years, I was, you know, around mostly white kids who were well-spoken and, well, I shouldn't say well-spoken, but spoke a particular way versus when I was in high school and it was more an urban setting, spoken a very different way. So that's why it's so easy for me to kind of go back and forth.
Right. You've been around different tones and you kind of learn to, you know, I was in the South for just like 7 months as a kid. And when I came back, my family noticed, like I would say some things with like a Southern accent. And that was just a few months.
Right.
You know, and like I don't speak that way anymore because, you know, I'm not in the South, but it doesn't take long to pick up an accent. You know, I have a Russian husband. I don't speak Russian, but the sentence structure and the word usage and, you know, tone is very different. You know, we used to, I'll joke with him about not being able to say something in English and then I find myself saying it incorrectly. Like he can't say warm weather, he says worm. And like sometimes if I'm not thinking about it, I go to try to say warm weather and it comes out the same as what you know, so it's just this idea that like you pick up the language of people that you're around, but don't do it in like a fake way. Don't like try to pick up their language. It's just like a natural thing. So I
guess what we're trying to say more is just be authentic.
Yeah.
Don't feel like, because it can be offensive. Mm-hmm. If you are doing things and it's unauthentic, you know, when you're doing, because it can almost feel like it's mocking.
Right.
If it's just who you are, just be who you are. And I think that that's something that kind of bonds us together is we're kind of just who we are all the time, whether you like it or not.
Right. And then just like the different tones, so like having blaccent versus not blaccent for like us, customer service voice. I think it's just, everyone does it, but it's just more notable in some communities versus other communities because the standard that everyone thinks of as the customer service voice just doesn't happen to include,
and
you know,
also
idioms and things that are familiar within the Black community.
Right. And on the darker side of that too, just the way that you're treated when you don't use your customer service voice versus when you speak with a blaccent. I've had instances where we've been in a situation, needed to call 911 for something. Someone who does not have the customer service voice would call and get a very different response. And I would call and use my Catholic school voice, and lo and behold, they show up in 2 minutes. And it's like, you know, or...
And it shouldn't be that way, but we recognize that it is. So it's become a survival technique for Blacks that are trying to work.
Yeah,
it's
or even
silly, like, but it is.
Even things like customer service. So you know those stupid robocall, or not robocalls, but the you have been chosen to for the electric company. And I've said to them sometimes if I'm just waking up or I'm irritated, and I'm like, stop calling me. Don't call my house again. Versus when I answer and I'm like, listen, if you call my house again, I'm going to call the police and file harassment charges. And it's the first one gets, ma'am, no, and they're yelling back at me versus, oh, ma'am, I'm really sorry. We'll take your name off the list.
Right. People perceive different things based on the language that they hear. And it's kind of silly, but yeah. So that's just kind of a short-ish description of trying to answer that question of like, what's the blaccent? And it's funny because I feel like the assumption that we're the people to ask is also kind of funny because neither of us necessarily like naturally grew up in like an urban community. You know, like we did, like we're around it and stuff, but just I think that assumption that.
Well, once again, it speaks to the name of our show, which is not two Black Moms, because people feel comfortable asking us things like that because they pretty much assume that we're not going to get upset and that they can safely ask us that without a whole.
And I have to say, like, we appreciate these questions. Like, we want to answer these questions, so don't, assume that was me saying don't ask these questions, but just kind of speaking to the idea that, like, we can speak for the entirety of any community. We can't. There could be people who are watching this and be like, "You guys, that's not remotely accurate."
Or like your brother said that we're the two of the whitest Black people that he's ever met.
Right. So I mean, we're not speaking for everybody, but that's just our interpretation of the blaccent.
Yeah. And and last thing is.
We tried.
I know. There's so many TV shows that kind of touch on this kind of thing. We'll try to post links to some different ones in the comments. But change up what you watch on TV. Yeah. And that can give you a little bit more, especially sitcoms and comedians, because that's where you get a lot of education.
Oh, and I just wanted to throw out, like, Claire Huxtable, lawyer, professional, like, everything. And she still threw out some of those token Black parent phrases. Like, that was, absolutely. You could see in her tone when she was stern with her children, like it was just like that different, like
big fun when she went to go see when Vanessa went to Baltimore.
Oh yeah. So like it's just Yeah.
So we'll post some links because otherwise this will go on for another.
Yes, this is supposed to be quick. This isn't even an episode, so we're done.
See ya.